We'd like to welcome everybody to our September East Central Ohio Technology Users Club's general program meeting. We are a week later due to many of us attending a long term member of our clubs passing away in his service last week. Okay, Judy.
Just for grins.
Yeah, I did make you a co-host because you didn't need one. So we're glad that you're with us today. I'm guessing that today's nice weather has got a lot of other people out and about, because I know good and well that there are many club members with questions that are going to go unanswered because they're not here.
Nice weather.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Mary Frances to get on here. The way we're going to work this today is that anybody who is at the church, you can either ask your question, or if you don't want to ask it, put your name and the question on a paper and give it to Jim or Everett. They are the Techxperts that are in-house. Those people who are online, if you want to ask a question, you can, of course, raise your hand and ask the question, or you can submit it through the chat box, and I will tell the people at the in-house who gets a ticket for asking a question. And then online, we have three Techxperts. We've got David DeRolf, Judy Tallur from APCUG, and myself. We're the ones that stepped forward and volunteered to be on the platform to get knocked off with that ball that's going to get thrown at us. So I guess we can, I have some questions, but we'll start with any question from somebody down at the fellowship hall. Anybody got a question to stump the Techxperts? And you'll need to speak loud so that everybody hears.
I have one.
All right, Michael.
Okay, I went to the workshop yesterday, and there was an old Dell there that I brought with me, and I decided to put Windows 11 on it last night at my home. So when I charged it and turned it on, it would only come on for like 20 seconds. So at that point, I thought maybe it was a bad battery, so I took the battery out and tried to start it, and it wouldn't start. So then I took the back of the laptop off and cleaned the fans, and I reinstalled the RAM and took out the hard drive and put another hard drive in it. And after I was doing all these things, I would try and start it, but it wouldn't start. And so I gave up, turned the laptop back over, and I started hitting, out of frustration, all the function keys as I started it, and one worked. And I was wondering if anybody could figure out what happened. I have it's fixed now. I was curious if I could stump you guys.
Stumps me.
Wow.
All right. Which F key was it?
It was the boot key.
Oh.
And it booted.
Which key?
On Dell's, it's F12.
Okay.
Is this the old gal's laptop?
This is a real old one. It's a 2010.
Okay, so it's not the old gal. Is it her laptop?
It's a Latitude. Yes, Dell Latitude.
Okay, when you said an old gal, I thought you meant an old lady.
Oh,
He said a gal, not Dell.
Old Dell. It's a Dell.
Okay.
A Dell.
Because I was gonna say it was an old gal, Windows 10.
We gave him 2010 Dell. Dell. So now it's working fine?
Yes, but I want to, if anybody can think of, it's a simple fix. And,
Well, yeah, but you don't know whether you did something else in between by messing around with the battery and you took out the hard
no,
drive.
I know what it
and-
was. I know exactly what it was. Want me to tell you?
Well, yeah.
I have no
The
idea.
date was wrong.
But how did you get,
How
how did you get to the date if it wouldn't boot up?
It tried to boot up for about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
But I never hit when it was booting, I never hit the F12 key at all initially.
Okay, so you're not talking about the boot up key, you're talking about the BIOS menu.
The system.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I hit F. I hit another key to see if it would boot, it wouldn't. And then I went into the BIOS and I noticed that the date when that time was wrong. And of all things, it turned, I installed Windows 11 on it.
Hello?
Huh.
But I went to all that trouble
Okay.
of switching the RAM,
So now you.
putting a new another hard drive in it. I thought you might find that interesting.
Well, did you have Windows 11 installed?
No, I had nothing
Okay.
installed on that. The hard drive was wiped.
And I would say congratulations to get it working.
Yeah.
I taught tech classes to adults for over 20 years. And this would be one of those questions that I would say, we could talk about this until the end of class and we'd never be able to figure it out.
well, and I'll also warn you that don't be surprised if it happens again, because my guess is you need to replace the BIOS battery,
I agree.
which holds the date, because that's where,
That's what happened, yeah.
yeah. So,
Buy an inexpensive laptop to replace it.
Well, this is one we're gonna give away anyway.
Oh,
I wouldn't give that away until you replace that battery.
California did it.
no.
It was when I heard about we were going to have this show, I thought that I would take one that I couldn't get started and see if I could figure out how to do it. And I almost gave up.
Mike, is that battery, system battery holding the date? The
So
correct date?
far,
Okay.
but I think that
So
I
maybe
might order a CMOS battery for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's the one I think you're gonna need, because that's what keeps the date.
Yeah, if somebody wants this thing, I'll order another CMOS. But it's so old, I don't know if anybody will buy it or want it even free.
If not, I'll take it.
Okay,
See, I got, this one's very similar to that one.
okay.
Well, the CMOS, we've got tons of CMOS
But
batteries
it's
up
the
there.
ones that it's a covered coin with the wire on
Yeah,
it. And you have to go on to eBay and buy them.
Okay.
it's a simple, I can do a solder those wires onto a new one.
Oh,
It's no
that'd
big
be
deal.
fine. You can take it right now.
So it's basically what you're saying is the regular battery, as long as you keep it going, everything will be okay, but if the battery goes down,
There's two batteries in
well,
it.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get at. When it goes down, then the other battery that's supposed to keep the date, if it's bad,
Yes.
that's when that happens.
I don't think the main battery,
The main battery is really good for such an old computer.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
I don't think the main battery has anything to do with keeping the power in your clock battery.
No.
I think they're
CMOS
separate.
batteries last maybe 5-7 years, something
Yeah.
like that.
I've seen them last more than that.
Yeah, but they're,
Yeah, borrowed time.
yeah.
Yeah, right. But,
Oh,
yeah, some computers won't boot up without a
don't have
good
CMOS.
bio,
I've got
clock
one
battery.
one, that's what I was asking the question.
No.
I've got a constant plugged in, the battery's
You
still
set the-
okay. But what I was wondering about what he just said, that could mean it may not boot up sometime because the other battery.
John, do we
Yeah.
have a question?
Oh, we've got questions. All right, I will give Mike one ticket, not two, since it wasn't a real question that he didn't, that he had already figured, and it would have been a question that would have taken a good while to troubleshoot. It's just like the question I got last night from Juanita. It took me an hour to resolve her issue. And so that would not have worked for today, because that would have been
Get over here so they can see you.
Tuesday.
She's here.
Wanita's here.
okay.
She just came.
Oh,
Everybody got to see me today.
Well,
She
we're
got her
gonna
hair
get to
done,
see you
too.
here.
now she was going to go to the Catholic potluck.
I went to Catholic potluck. I had to fill my belly with hot dogs and beer.
All right.
Oh.
All right. So that question would not have been resolved by a Techxperts, because that took an hour of trial and error to recover. All right, I'm going to start things off on this end with Nancy Grauer. So put Nancy Grauer's name down for a ticket for a question. And her question was for the Techxperts. When it states to check connections, what am I supposed to be checking?
There you go.
Well, what is you trying to plug in?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do with that?
Nancy, every once in a while, you should unplug everything and plug it back in, both ends. That should be part of your preventive maintenance to make sure that if you have a cat or a dog or little creepy crawly grandkids or whatever around, Terry, that's what they're called, all right? And your cords or cables can get loosened and you don't realize it. And that happened to me, and I was giving somebody my troubleshooting 101 presentation. That's the first thing I say that needs to be done. And all of a sudden, my computer wasn't working. It was my surge protector. One of the cords that was plugged, power cord that was plugged in there, was loose. My 20-pound cat had been back there, and he did a number on it.
Hold it loose.
So if that's what you're talking about plugging in, everybody should do that, just like you should reboot your router every couple of weeks, and you should make sure if you have an iWatch and your phone, you should turn it off, just like you do your computer every single week, at least once.
Okay, tell me that again. I should reboot the router?
First,
Talking about that, I'm just saying that's are just things to live by. And
the question I would ask Nancy is, and this is what I ask anybody when they said, my question is, who said to check your connection? Because that's the first thing I'd want to know is who is saying check connection, because they probably are telling you what connection to check. So in Juanita's case, she didn't have any internet. So we had to check the internet coming to the modem and getting all of that confirmed before we could move on to the next step. So, when I guess the question is, who said to check the connection? If it's your computer, it's probably on, so those connections are okay. But it might be your Wi-Fi or the computer saying check your Wi-Fi connection. And then, as Judy says, it might need to be required to have a reboot of the router to get that working again.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody from down in the fellowship hall?
Hey, John, let's go back to the battery part. I'm still not,
Back to the what?
to the battery part.
Battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about that whole deal, because I've got a friend of mine that picked up a computer here because his crashed, and Adam helped him out. He couldn't get the other one fixed, so he picked one up from here, but it's an older computer. The primary battery is not that good anymore. So what he did was he just plugs it in.
Right.
Leaves it on. But what I'm hearing is since it's an older computer, the other battery that keeps the time on a computer can still go out, whether he's got
Yes,
plugged in or not.
correct. That's what, that battery keeps all the necessary information that the computer needs to start up.
Right. Okay, so my next question is, how do you check the health of that battery?
When the time starts going funky,
Well, that's when it's gone, right? I mean,
no, well, you can reset the clock just like Mike did, and it's going to work for a while. But then when the battery goes hiccup again, the time resets back to the past, and you have to get in there into the BIOS and change the time like he did.
okay.
I also, if you, you take the back off the laptop and go in there with a multimeter and just take one of the probes and put it on top of that round lithium battery and then ground the other cord to anywhere on the motherboard, you can check to see, is it 5 volts?
It's
3 volts?
3.25 when it's a new battery.
Yeah.
But it'll work down to about 3 volts.
So
So
if it's
after
below
about
3 volts,
it dies.
It
Yeah,
could. It just
replace it.
depends on the design.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm gonna clarify something. This called the clock battery.
Right.
And that's all for.
Right.
It's called the clock. Now, if it goes dead, it will revert back to the manufacturer date of that computer,
Which would have been.
say 2000, whatever. But you can still use it.
Oh, it was still,
Most of the
because
time.
he said it didn't even,
Well, it depends on the machine. Most of the time, that battery can be flat and it'll still work. But every time you boot it up, it's going to say either your clock is off, reset it, or whatever. And
okay, so he'll be clued in. I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
figure out
he'll-
what, because he's probably gonna call me sometime.
yeah, well, and the only time that'll happen is when you're booting up. So it depends on what the boot up screen looks like as to whether you even get that message or not.
Oh,
If you don't get that message and you go on into your operating system, you look at your clock, it's going to be off. So you can reset it there, or you can go into BIOS and set it within BIOS, and you'll be good as long as you don't power it off. Now, when you're running on power, the internal power supply holds that clock up. That battery can be totally dead, but if you don't have, like say, the power from the power supply holds that
right.
circuit alive. And so, of course, when you shut it off, it dies. With the batteries good, when the power's on, it takes the power off the battery. It removes the load on the battery, and you could run for years as long as you keep it plugged in.
As long as you keep it.
That's right. But as soon as you power it off, now the battery takes over and keeps the clock powered up.
So when you keep saying BIOS,
Basic input output system. There's a chip in there. Now the newer machines have it's called UEFI. It's a newer technology for the machine over BIOS. But I'm just going to use BIOS. There's a chip in there that holds all the information that's used to start the machine. That it does all the precursor work to get the machine up and running, starts the drives and all that stuff, then it hands everything over to the operating system once that happens. So BIOS is a very important thing. Without that, the machine will never do anything. So that, like I say, that battery, the information that's is in BIOS is in flash memory.
that's BIOS.
So it doesn't need power to keep BIOS working. The only power it's needed is for that clock to keep running.
so how do you get to the BIOS setting?
Well, F12 sometimes during boot up
That's because he
will,
was saying F12.
Yeah.
but that's not-
F2, it just depends on the machine.
Yeah, we have a list upstairs that says, this company, here's what you use. This company, here's what you use. And so we have to have the list because it's not universal. Sometimes it's escape key, sometimes it's default or the delete key.
But
Usually you'll see the key that needs to be pressed if during boot up, but you've got to be paying very close attention because
Why did you say
it's by very fast.
Yeah.
Now, to add the thing to Will for his worrying is that as many years and as many computers as I have, I don't know whether I've changed a BIOS or a CMOS clock or not. And in the computer lab, when we used to have it with our 10 computers, I think we only switched a couple of those CMOSs out in years when we had the lab. So, there's something that, can last. And that's why when you have to keep changing your time, there's your clue that says, okay, I bet I have to change the CMOS battery. But then you also look at how old that computer is and say, do I want to keep going with that? All right, come back to that. Anybody else at the church have a question before we go on to another question that has been submitted to the Techxperts in Zoom? Anybody else there? All right. Terry Wurst gets a ticket. He, thanks to Amazon sales, he's got a new computer. And besides just turning it on, and have you turned it on and logged in, Terry? Okay. So
Still in the box.
still in the box. Okay. So his question is, what do I do to set it up besides just turning it on when you get a brand new computer? So Techxperts, what is your advice to do when you got a brand new computer?
turn it
All
on.
John Kennedy, all Everett.
All right. We need to hear it from only the people who are certified experts. And that's 2 people in the audience and 3 people here. So what is your advice to do to set up a brand new computer?
First of all, if there is any instructions, read the instructions. It's going to tell you at least plug it into the wall. And I mean, the instructions are so basic that that's all you need to do right now. And then turn it on, let it boot up, and then usually, of course, if it's Windows, it's going to have a setup screen or a startup screen or some sort of a screen to get started or whatever. Follow the instructions.
And take your time. I always say stop and smell the roses. As each screen comes up, say, do I want Microsoft to know that much about me? Or do I want to do that? And if you can skip it and revisit it another time, if you're clueless, and you just keep on going until it says, yo, wait a minute, and we will get our act together. And it does what it does in the background after you've made your selections and you are good to go. And then you need to go into whichever operating system it is, and you have to go through each and every setting and say to yourself, do I want Microsoft to know that much about me? Or do I want to participate in this? And you're smelling the roses and you're taking your time. You've got your beverage of choice next to you, and you set everything up the way you want it, because we want to be able to use it the way we want to use it, not the way Microsoft sets it up. There are people who are Microsoft 100% all the way. They don't do this. I no more would keep it like that than I would fly to the moon. And it takes a while. And if there's stuff that you don't use, you need to go into accessibility. You can make your font size larger. You can make your cursor larger. Mine is black. extra large, so it pops out at me on the screen. You can make the, the bar that tells you where you are in your document thicker. You can do all that in accessibility, and I do this with every single computer I set up for somebody. And I'll say, do you want to have the text larger? Do you want to have, boom, boom, larger? And go through that and make your computer yours, not Microsoft's.
Thank you.
Great advice. Great advice.
Now, I want to start one step before that into thinking ahead. If you are doing a Microsoft computer, you are going to be required to create a Microsoft account.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean you have to use the Microsoft account.
Hmm.
I recommend that you go in as the Microsoft account and create a standard user
Hmm.
and do all your customizing as a standard user, because you have less outside interference as a standard user. And standard user not signed in as a Microsoft account. You can then, if you need your Microsoft account, you can sign in with that administrative account.
Hmm.
But for the most time, you would sign in as your standard user or local user, as they call it, and do everything you need until you have to do one of the few things that requires an administrator. And that way, you have more than one account so that if something goes wrong, things can be fixed. But I always recommend, and I think Microsoft's getting that idea, because they talk about not just running as an administrator all the time.
Hmm.
And so I suggest that after you get the Microsoft account as administrator set up, go in to the users and create a new user, and that becomes your main file where all of your stuff is kept, all of your customizations and the stuff that Judy talked about.
Well, John, just as another thing too, if you, and I'm used to be able to create a local account without creating the Microsoft account, but I think they've showed that up now. So
Yeah.
after you create your Microsoft account and you do the local user, keep in mind that if you don't do the local user and you try to log in and you don't have an internet connection, you can't log in. So that Microsoft user requires the internet connection to connect to Microsoft server in order just to be able to log in your own computer. So do that as soon as you can so that you can run the thing without the internet connection, because that could happen.
Exactly. And the other thing too is that when you set up a Microsoft account, you have to link that to an email account.
Mm.
And so I would link that to your non-personal account
Mhm.
so that your stuff can be separate from Microsoft's stuff.
And I don't do any of that. I just set it up and go on my merry way. And I've been doing this since mid-80s, and I've never had any problems with any of my operating systems. And I've always just ever had just me.
But she's a case where she is very thought ahead of time of what she clicks, what she doesn't. And so in her case, running as an administrator all the time is not a problem. But I would have to say that 95% of the people that I know and work with are not a Judy, and they're going to mess things up bad because they're in administrative mode. They let a virus in and it's going to just destroy your computer. I'm very, very caution on the safe side because of what I've seen other people have done.
And you might want to think when you set up your Microsoft account, back in the day, it was Hotmail.
Mhm.
Now it's Outlook.com, and just one thing, it's just for your Microsoft. It's just for getting in your personal computer that you've just set up. Nothing else comes there email wise. But, don't forget to, use your password manager. And if you don't do that, make sure you can always change the password, but why bother if you have it placed someplace securely? But just keep it for that one thing. Don't get it mixed up with your ordinary email stuff. And I'd use Outlook.com. I have Hotmail, and I prefer that email program far and above Gmail. But I would not have a Hotmail address, and then they changed it to Outlook, but I'd already am scbjudy@gmail.com. I would have, because I'm a Windows kid. So everything with Hotmail and Outlook.com online makes total sense to me. It's folders, not other things and stuff like that.
Anybody else from Techxperts? I've got one other thing to give him advice on, but I wanted somebody else on setting up. My other advice would be to look at what software came with your operating system, whichever you're choosing to use, and then think about over the years, what have you liked that you need to add? And then hopefully before you go too much further, you backed up, and I see that you note that you've got your stuff backed up, then you can easily copy that stuff back into your home directories. But think about what it is that you use all the time that might not be on your computer, so you can go out and get that, such as a different browser than Edge if you are comfortable using a different browser, a different word processing program than Word if that's what you're comfortable using.
And that you should take a look at the stuff that came with it and you said, I will never use that in this or any other lifetime, and uninstall it. There's no reason to keep it. If you don't know what it does, then Google it, DuckDuckGo it, and find out what it does. But get rid of the stuff that you just don't need it. You have plenty of room on your hard time, but you don't get, to be mucked up with it.
Mhm.
And you should go into your Control-Alt-Delete in your start menu and check startup and see what all is starting up. Because oftentimes, even when you download something that you dearly love, it ends up in startup.
Mhm.
And it's something that you use once a week, once a month. We are all capable of clicking on that program to start it, but we don't want it starting up and opening it up, because over time you go, oh, it is taking so long for my computer to boot up, start up. And that's because all this junk is in startup that you really don't need. And if you have it not start up, it's still there. At any time you start using a program every single day and you go, I get so tired of having to find it and click on it, you can reactivate it starting up. I will do a Teams meeting, Microsoft Teams. It ends up in my startup menu. I only do that once every other month. And so I'm very capable of clicking on that link when I need to, and I don't need it starting up. And bear in mind, with Windows 11 now, I understand that OneDrive is set up for you to use. If you want to use that, fine. If you don't, you need to figure out how to disable everything that you create going to OneDrive. So you have a whole bunch of choices to make when you buy a new computer or you go from Windows 10 to Windows 11. And I must say, I consider Windows 11, it would have been the most difficult operating system that I ever had to teach, because it does not make sense.
And in another month or so, Windows users will get to see Windows 12 although it will be called Windows 12 because they got a lot of flack because 10 was supposed to be the last one that you're going to have to buy. But there's going to be a huge major update coming out soon, which will be Windows 11's 24H2. And my understanding is that it will reset all of your choices back to Microsoft default. And so, but we're waiting for confirmation from somebody who's investigating the new update. But that's going to be another big change on that. Anybody else for Terry? Terry doesn't get a second one because he didn't stump us, but that was a good question. Anybody from in the audience in the church? All right, I know Mary Frances has a question.
Yes, I do.
Well,
Oh, excuse me. I wrote in chat that I have a 6-part question. Actually, I have a 7-part question. If I tell you that the number 7, it might answer the previous 6.
well, you pick the one you think you're going to stump us on because that's what you're going to get the double ticket on. So Mary Frances gets 1 ticket because she's going to ask a question. So do number 6 and see if you can stump us.
I was going to ask a question about Google Calendar, and I was going to ask you, may I have more than one alert for one date on my calendar?
Or are you talking about one event on the calendar?
Oh, one event.
Okay.
Thank you. May I have more than one alert for one event?
Okay, we'll put it up to any experts that are Google Calendar people.
I use an Android calendar, so I don't know if it's the same as, works the same
This
as
is,
Google or not.
this is Android.
Nope, it's Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. I don't know. It might work the same. But
Certain
I don't know
meetings.
whether they do or not.
Mary Frances, does that mean you have a meeting at 10 o'clock and you have another one at 2 o'clock and maybe another one at 4 o'clock? And you want to be notified of each one?
No, I am thinking about birthdays. I would love to know about the birthday coming up maybe 10 days ahead so I could go shopping for cards and gifts. And then I would like to know closer to the birthday so that I could get it in the mail in time after I did secure the items.
Okay, so your birthday is on the 15th of the month and you want to be notified on the 10th.
Yes.
Then all you need to do is put that information on the 10th and it will notify you that you need to get your act in gear and get cards and gift cards or whatever and get the stuff in the mail.
But she also wants to know because of being Mary Frances, 5 days ahead of time, and
Yeah.
then remind her again 1 day ahead of time.
Just set it up.
That's the question. Can you set up Google events with multiple announcements or notifications?
Or do I have to make separate?
You can set 2 announcements for each entry.
But David, you're not an expert. You said you're too busy. And David is partially right.
I would say that if she has a birthday on October 15th is the date of the birthday, she could set it up then. But if she wants to buy it, you set up an event on September 1, and then you want to mail it on September 7th. So you set an event to tell you to mail it, and you can set it at whatever time you want to mail it, and it'll come up and tell you, birthday coming, mail this card. But it'd be 3 separate events.
Too much work, too much work. So you can see on your screens, today's the 22nd for the monthly program. I'm just going to pick another date
All right.
and we're going to it's all right.
Nor is it too much work.
Okay, so more options. So under more options, Mary Frances, we can add a notification. When we do that, we can say, I want to know how many days and with the time. Or I can send me an email to remind me whatever I pick. But we have another button that says add another notification. And so I can change this to a different one. I can change this one to be 10 days before 9 o'clock in the morning. And I can change this one to 5 days. I can add another notification and say, send me an email to remind me 7 days before. I can click add another notification. So
Perfect.
you can add enough to drive you crazy because it keeps reminding you. And of course, you can change the time of the day. My office doesn't open up until at least 10 a.m. So I don't want any kind of notifications before that. But yeah, you can choose between emails and just a notification that pops up on your computer and multiples for the same one.
But so
And-
I don't get to refer to all my other questions on that subject.
Oh yeah, in a minute we'll share things around, so don't go away.
Thank you.
Okay, Media Machine camera went dark.
Well, we see your,
There, now your camera's back. David, was your question in general, did it just happen today?
No, it happened, well, in fact, the last month, at our last monthly meeting, it happened. I didn't know whether I should even ask the question since I'm supposedly one of the Techxperts, but anyway, yeah, I was having, what happened, for example, last month when we had our Zoom session is that my image on the screen would just go blank. There would still be my box, the box there showing my name, but you couldn't see me. It was just grayed out. Well, that turned out to be a hardware failure for the webcam that I'd used for many years. And so I had another webcam. So I thought, well, I'll unplug the old one. I plugged the new one into the same USB port that the old one was plugged into, just to make sure there was no issue with the USB port on the computer. And the new webcam, which I'm using now, worked fine. So I think that's maybe something that most users wouldn't encounter, because it's probably not very often that a webcam fails. But it was the webcam I was using was getting quite old and had been used a lot. So I had to conclude that it was just a hardware failure there.
Okay. Well, it's good because I was going to ask the question, did your Hollywood Squares go back to a big printout of your name, or it was just black? Because right now, you know, we have your picture and your name's in the bottom corner. Mary Frances doesn't have a camera on, so she's got her name in big black. And Bobby doesn't have her camera on, so we just see the picture she wanted. Or was it doing that or just going black?
Yeah, it was just going, well, gray. Just
Gray, okay, but without the name. So the camera was still on, but it was not um, uh, transmitting the thing. So,
Yeah.
yep, they do get old. Good. Another question from anybody in the fellowship hall? All right, then we'll go on because Nancy has another question. If she can stump you, she gets a ticket. She's already got a ticket for asking a question. She wants to know, what is a file checker?
I've seen that in some sort of diagnostic thingies. I think it checks the integrity of the file as far as the data is concerned. Nancy, is that something that came up as a result of you trying to install something or trying to use something?
I don't remember ever. Those are questions I had in my little book
Oh,
that I would always want to ask somebody. So I don't remember exactly how that appeared or why, or what I was doing.
In Windows, sometimes if the computer gets shut down improperly, like with a power failure, when it boots back up, it will say, need to do a file check. And it will go through all of your files and check to see if there's any been damage or something.
Okay, I don't recall that, but
Yeah.
I understand it.
But I don't know if there's any such programs that you can buy that's file checker. I know there's a lot of programs that can do things about files. Like we have favorite ones that check to see what file is the largest file on your computer, so you can know what you need to get rid of if you need to get rid of junk and stuff. But
no, John, you're talking about the check disk function in Windows. You know, if you have, like you say, you have a crash or you shut down improperly, yeah, that's a check disk. And it basically checks everything, you know, not just, but checks files, folders, and everything.
yeah,
Yeah, you know, and Linux does have sometimes you can do a file check when you're booting into the Linux live disk, or you can check the CD for errors and things like that. It's a kind of a broad scope there that we're talking about.
okay, good. Mary Frances, go
Yes.
on to 20 years.
Is Google's, you can tell that I do not have a Google Calendar yet. Is Google Appointment Calendar separate from Google Birthday Calendars?
Google Calendar uses people's information that are other Google users, because when you sign up to Google, you put in your birthday.
Oh,
And then when you go to your Google email and
Yeah.
you add contacts, Google then goes out and gets all the information it has on your contacts, such as birth dates, websites, things like that. So you give out that information, Google goes and adds it to somebody who puts you in their contacts, and therefore adds it to your calendar. So it's a separate calendar that you can turn on, turn off inside of Google Calendar, along with turning on or off holidays, shared calendars with other people.
okay.
So it's a part of Google ecosystem.
I'm gonna have to think about whether I want to put my name in that or not. Thank you.
Now, if you've already done it,
I already did.
well, if you have a Gmail account,
Yes, but I didn't tell him how old I am.
Are you sure?
I feel sure.
Oh. It didn't confirm that you were old enough to have an account?
I feel sure.
Okay.
I just,
David.
you know, I'll mention something here that Mary Frances or any user might want to consider.
What, Dave?
Relating to birthdays and other, maybe Christmas cards, whatever that you might normally send through the regular mail.
Uh-huh.
Want to use an online card service, I'll mention one called JackieLawson.com. And it's a subscription-based service. I think the current cost is around maybe $24 a year. I could be wrong on that. The last time I made a payment, I subscribed to, I think, 2 years at one time. So not sure about the annual cost, but I found it very nice, and just sending out some of these e-cards, which are quite nice. Much nice. There are some free e-cards. I think there used to be, at least,
Yes.
from certain sources. But if you want something which I think is higher quality, you might consider JackieLawson.com.
Dave, I already discovered it back when it was $12 a year. I'm really old. And yes, it's a wonderful service, and I enjoyed it for a year.
Yeah. And
Thank you, Dave.
yeah. And Mary Frances, in terms of birth dates, I cannot deny or confirm that if you put my birth date in your calendar to remind you to send me a birthday card, that you put it into Google and now Google has my birthday.
I think it will have your DATE birth date, but not your year. I don't think I can't put your year in there. I don't.
Right, but now Google has my birth date. And then that way, anybody who puts me in their contacts will get my birth date because it's in the Google system. But birthdays are kind of public record, so what are you worried about? Questions, David?
I'll mention one other thing about birthdays, and I know not all of you are Facebook users, but if you are, Facebook and if all your Facebook friends, or whatever number of them, have entered their birthday in their Facebook profile, you'll get reminders of birthdays when you sign on to your Facebook account. And then you might want to, you can use, of course, you can express birthday wishes within Facebook. So that's just something else I thought I'd mention there.
And we also get birthday announcements every year for Bob and Gina Porter. And they've been passed away for many, many years because it's in that system.
Yeah.
Check. Anybody think of something from the hall? Okay. Back to another question that I have.
John.
Yes. Go ahead, Mary Frances.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would this site be interested in a question that I have posed to me several times during the last 4 months?
I think they're sitting there saying, I don't know what questions to ask. So if anybody asks a question, it might be pertinent to me. So yes, ask.
People call me and say they have a smartphone. It is full of photos. They want to know how to get them off of there so they can take them and have them copied and physical pictures sent out to their friends.
Who does that? All right.
We do.
How do you get all
I'm
those pictures off of a smartphone or an iPhone?
No, not all of them. Select pictures.
Oh, select pictures.
Well, Mary Frances, usually there's a cable that goes with the smartphone. It's used for charging purposes. And it usually has a USB connector on the other end. And you can plug that into any computer. Windows works well. And what that does, and of course you have to have your smartphone turned on. And what that'll do is it'll search for the pictures. It's called DCIM, digital camera image memory. And now it might not be called that, but through some mechanism, you're able to go directly into the image memory, and you'll see all those pictures or even videos that will be available. And you can actually copy those and paste them into your computer, like pictures folder or whatever. And now you've got them in the form that the camera took those pictures in. And they're usually viewable just by double clicking them. So I've done that many times with, several different kinds of phones, smartphones, whatever. That seems to work okay. The other way would be to email them using your smartphone to your email and do it that way. But that, if you got a lot of them, it's a lot of data to transfer over the email. So
Exactly. Davy Rouse taught me how to do it the way that you just previously shared with us about the DCIM and going to the images. But I was just saying that there are people in our club that call me asking me that question. So it would be lovely if they felt like asking it on the Zoom meeting, but I don't know what kind of bashfulness it is, but they don't want to tell you that they don't know how to do something. And it doesn't make any difference to Mary Frances. Mary Frances, if she wants to know something, she's just out there showing you that she's an idiot and she wants to learn.
David?
Yeah, another point maybe regarding photos. Sometimes of course I take photos with my smartphone. And let's say that I want to post a question on doityourself.com's forum. And I want to post a picture there. I'd rather do that on their website using my computer than doing it on my smartphone, just because I've got a bigger screen and I find it easier to do from my computer. Well, to get the photo from my phone, let's say maybe just one photo that I want to get over into my computer, I uploaded from the photo from my phone to Google Photos and then downloaded it onto my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's another procedure that some of you might want to try.
And there is a cable that'll hook up to your phone that you can hook a thumb drive to. And I just did that the other day because I was running out of space, and I just downloaded all my videos to the thumb drive so I could take it off my phone, free up probably 3 or 4 gigabytes. So,
Who is speaking to us?
Jim Amore.
somebody-
Hi, Jim. Thank you.
I did that too with Apple. I did that too with the Apple. I took everything out of the cloud because I refused to buy more cloud space.
Yeah.
Put it on a thumb drive. Put it over on my hard drive and my external hard drive.
Okay.
One other option is that if you're on your phone, you go to that picture and you long press it, and up pops a button with options like share.
Yep.
When you hit the share button, you can text it to them, forward it to them, email it to them.
Yep.
Right? And the other good, better way to be doing things is that you should have all the pictures on your phone backed up to the cloud. And then you can share those pictures on the cloud with people who need them. And then they can download them and print them out if they need to print them out.
As many times as you have told me, I have not done it.
Well, if you've got an Android phone, it should be already set up for Google Photos. And your photos are in two places. They're on your computer or your phone, and they're up in Google Photos. And every so often I go through and tell the computer, clean up or make room, and it'll move all the pictures that are on my phone up into the cloud. And that works great because if I need to print out a picture, my wife wants a picture to put up, a real one, I go to Walgreens and I say, add a picture from my Google, pull it right over and send it to them to print out. So they're all up there, accessible, easy transfer.
I've done the same kind of transfer to CVS Pharmacy to get photos developed.
Right? And you can go to Walmart Electronics, as Ken said, and tell them you want to print a photo, and they'll walk you through that process.
Mm-hmm.
The old days, we used to pop out the SD card from our cameras and plug it into theirs and select the pictures you want to print, and then print.
Right.
All right, Mary, our Juanita mentioned something about storage. So here's another question. When your computer tells you you don't have enough storage, how do you determine whether you have enough storage or not? And what do you do to resolve that?
You're asking me how I would.
No, I'm saying you didn't want more storage to pay for more storage, so you moved stuff. So your computer tells you that you're running out of storage space.
Yes, it does. The camera tells me, yes, that
Well,
I have 5 GB of space already filled up in the cloud.
Yeah, well, we're talking about your computer tells you your hard drive is running out of space.
That's not ever happened before. It's just the cloud that's run out of space.
Okay. Well, this is the question that I was given submit. So how do you determine if your computer is running out of room, and then what do you do about it?
Take it off and put it on a thumb drive and then transfer it over to your external hard drive.
Well, how do you know you're having a problem with it? Just because somebody said so? You believe that?
Well,
I don't know any other way to determine that. I guess.
How do you check if you
telling me?
How do you check if you're running out of space?
you go to my PC or computer or whatever, double click it, and it brings up your hard drive diagram, and it shows, or there's also other ways to do it, but it shows you what big the drive is, like 500 gigabytes or so, how much is being used and how much is free space, and you can tell right from that. You don't ever want to go over about 80% full. I mean, you can, but it kind of pushes it. So that's where you find out in 25 words or less.
Yeah, that's perfect. And usually the big indicator is it turns red instead of blue.
Yeah, correct.
Now,
No.
then the question comes, how do you find out what's taking up all that room?
Where would you go?
Yeah, that's
In Linux operating system, where would you go?
there are programs that you can use that will have you it's like a graphics design that shows the areas or the programs that are using X amount of space. And if you pretty well know where if you've used that computer, you pretty well have an idea of what's taking up most of the space. Like if you take a lot of photographs and videos and stuff, that's probably going to be using a gobble.
Having a hard time hearing Everett because of the microphone right up there in the ceiling.
No, well, I'm
There was some
talking,
extra noise.
okay, well, anyway, you can, if you know your way around your own computer, you can pretty well guess at what's taking up most of the space. But like I say, there is a program, and I think it was Adam that showed me one time that you can run, and it gives you a graphic layout of everything that's on your drive and how much space it's using and the name of the things that are doing that. And you can pretty well pinpoint what's using most of the space. Other than that, you just have to kind of go through your menu and look at the size of stuff.
One program that Ron Sherwood showed us many years ago that is really, really good is called Tree Size Free. And there's another program for the Windows people that's called Winderstat. And for us Linux people, it's Caterstat. And it will show you exactly what's taking up the room. Now,
Spell that word, Kater.
KDEIR, Caterstat, directory statistics.
Okay, thank you.
Windows directory Winderstat is the one for Windows. Caterstat is the one we use in Linux. But free or Tree Size Free is the other one. Now, Everett made the comment that you usually know what's filling up your computer. And that's not always the case, because Windows can create lots of logs on its own that you have no idea that it's taking place and filling up your computer. And so a program like Winderstat will show you where, or the Tree Size Free, where the big blockage is. And it's a program that will help you, because we had a number of years ago had a hard drive that was like full, and he's looking through his folders and there's nothing that's filling up the hard drive. We ran the Tree Size Free to see where it was. It turned out that he had multiple users on his computer, which is not an issue. But what we discovered was that this other user was linked to his iCloud. And every time he did stuff on his phone with taking pictures and they got backed up to iCloud, iCloud sent them back to sync with that other user, which he doesn't use. And so thanks to Tree Size Free, we could see that there was nothing in his files that were causing problems. But then when we checked the other user, we found that all of the stuff that was up in the cloud was duplicated on that computer. So once he got rid of all that, he was fine. But he would have never found it because he was looking at his files for his user. So like Terry, if you have the two different users, the admin user, which is one you make when you set your computer up with Microsoft, and you have yours, well, there could be another user that is filling up your hard drive. So that kind of a program, Tree Size Free or Winderstat, Caterstat for us other people, would be what you need. And then once you know what's taking up the room, then you can either do what Juanita did, copy stuff over to an external drive, or you say, I don't need that stuff, just delete it and get your space back that way. All right, anybody else with any big questions? I know that there are some more that we can save for later. Mary France, you can always check with me on your Google Calendar stuff, because it's about time that we need to switch.
I have a question, a dying question I want to ask Terry.
Oh, okay, yes, Terry.
What operating system is on the computer that you bought?
It'll be Windows 11, no question.
Yeah, Windows 11.
Okay,
You can't buy a new computer without Windows 11.
I need to ask John Kennedy my question number 7,
Number 7, oh,
Mary Frances.
yeah.
John, how many people would I have to get together to ask you to come and sit with us some afternoon and show all of us how to set up a Google Calendar to our satisfaction on our computers?
I do it with just you, Mary Frances, you know.
Yeah, but my friends, I have some stupid friends also.
Well, if they would come in, I would come in too.
Thank you. That's it. That's it.
All right. So we'll end this meeting now. Remind everybody, the few that are here, really sorry that we didn't have a lot of other people with questions that are going to go unanswered. And unfortunately, Mary Frances will be getting calls because they'll call her. They won't come and ask the questions here. In Adam's place next month is October, which is Cybersecurity Month. And we will have with us Bob Gastisha doing his 2024 Trying to Be Safe on the Internet. I've got to go get his exact title from him so I can, post that. But he will be here on the 3rd Sunday afternoon from New Mexico. And then in November, Adam is trying to work to get that information about this new Windows 24 H2 and all of that. And then shortly in November, we'll start getting things ready for our holiday potluck on December 8th. That's the second Sunday because the first Sunday is the same weekend as Thanksgiving. So normally we do the first Sunday, but we're just going to be stuffed with our turkeys. So we'll do it on the 8th. All right, Everett, you can probably close the meeting off and turn things over to Davey Roush. And thank everybody who did come. And I hope that Bobby didn't have any questions that she needed to ask, or I'll pick on Virgil. He was there, didn't have any questions. So hope you got your answers.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. I'll leave it up so we can do the drawings.